So thank you very much. That went down with some people, but not everybody. My stand-up career is not yet starting, clearly. Thank you very much, Simon. So we're going to ask some questions, but I've got a question for you first.
Go.
The toughest of questions. So you mentioned there about sort of motivations, getting started, and what success is to you. And I think we see a lot of business in the media being a sort of a dragon's den about the money, about making money. You've said there about sort of your own, everyone having their own goal. How do you sort of advise people and students and graduates looking to start to really focus on that rather than being too focused on making money and sort of the glamorous bits of the business that we don't always...
Yeah, I think I mentioned something early on about, the CEO of your own life thing. And I'm a big believer of sort of, there's the Stoic principle, right? It's one of the old 2,000-year-old philosophy, and it's about there's some things in your control, some things out of your control. We often spend so much of our time, our brain space, focusing on things out of our control. What someone's doing on Instagram or TikTok, or how they're living their best life, how they're doing this and doing that. And we don't focus enough on the things that we can control. Forget that. You can't control what people think of you. You can't control that people are going to say shitty little things to you, excuse my language, about you setting something up. You're always going to have detractors trying to bring you down. Ignore that. You've got to do your thing, right? Focus on you and what you're doing. Yeah, and then ultimately I'm sure you will be the envy of people scrolling and looking at you going, oh, he's doing all right, she's doing all right. Yeah. So I think the main thing is definitely focus on your own path. Everyone's different. It's easy to compare and look around and see what others are doing. I think things like The Apprentice are a massive problem. They're basically saying you have to be an absolute arse in a pinstripe suit, shouting at a phone on the taxi to Canary Wharf, and that's what business looks like. I don't buy it at all. I think success can come from different types of people, from introverts, extroverts, neurodiverse, you name it. It doesn't matter. If you have an idea and you have a vision of what you want to do, you owe it to yourself and no one else to actually see that through and at least try it, because you're the only one living your life, right? So I always think that anyway, because I used to think, that was the way to do it. And then when I got that big job, I realized that wasn't me, and I was masking all that time and it felt wrong. So I thought, you know what? I'm not pleasing anyone. I may as well please myself. So yeah, that's kind of my thing.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So has anybody got any questions? Please don't be shy, or else I will pick on my students. So be warned, that table there. There we go, we've got some. So Dom is going to come around with the microphone. So if you've got a question, keep your hands up.
Hello. Oh, hi.
Hello.
Hi, Simon. Really enjoyed your talk. I just had my questions for you is, as a founder, what is your biggest challenge, biggest pain point, like throughout your founding Archman?
Cash flow. It's the worst, right? So make sure that when you charge clients, it depends what you're doing, right? If you're in a product business and you're saying an e-commerce business, you would be selling a product, getting the money into your PayPal, Stripe, whatever it is, and then going into your account, and then you would deliver the goods. If you're a service business and you're doing a course or lessons or music or video, you probably put a quote together, you do it, and then you want to charge them for what you've done. Sometimes you have to wait 14 days, 30 days, and that can be a challenge. So for example, I invoice at the end of the month, okay? I invoice on, it'll be the 28th this month, which is always a challenge, by the way, February. And then you do 30-day terms. Now, if they don't pay on time, there is knock-on effects, cash flow, and things like that. I know this isn't the cool, funky stuff that people like to talk about. This is real, yeah, right? You need to make sure you've got cash in the bank. My advice to people is try and get at least 25 to 50% prepayment from, because if they argue about that, red flag, run away. You don't want those clients, right? If they're gonna haggle you and say we don't do prepayment, you don't do work for them, see you later, right? Maybe that's come with me doing this for a long time and having the confidence to do that. But just to warn you, if anyone gives you nonsense about not wanting to do prepayment, run a mile, okay? That's my big thing. I'm quite passionate about that, as you can tell.
Thank you.
Would you say there was any disadvantage to being based in Lincoln opposed...
Oh, hello.
Would you say there was any disadvantage to being based in Lincoln opposed to, say, London?
Oh, that's a good question. No. It depends on how you want to do things. having a business based in Lincoln is perfect, by the way, right? Like, there's no doubt. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you are in any way geographically restricted or anything like that. I spend most of my time in London. I was in, I've got a client in Oklahoma. I was in Madrid last year. I was in Stockholm. I fly all over the world doing what I do, but I'm based in Lincoln because it's actually a really nice place to live. And I spend a lot of my time away, but it's a really good base. And when I set up my business, I wanted to take that pressure of cash flow off because I had to make a certain amount of money to pay my rent for epoxy one bed in Wandsworth, which was ridiculous. It's like, what am I doing? I'm not living a life I'm not working in the city anymore. I'm not working in a big agency. I'm working for me. I've got to make some decisions here. And moving to a place which is more affordable, let's be honest, it's great. And look around the room. Look at the people who are in this room. Look at people who are talking on stage later. Look at the connections that Lincoln has with the wider world and LNER and all those different things. You're in a really good spot here. So, and I know there's people in the room that can help you make the most of this city. So, yeah, without a doubt, I've got no doubt that Lincoln's a good place for it. But basically, wherever you are in the UK, cost of living's going up. So, if it's purely financial, that will be squeezed. But having good people around you, a good pace of life, good car, Lincoln, great.
Sorry, just to add on to that point.
Hello.
Over here, yeah.
Yeah, guys, you're going to have to hold up like a thing or something.
What about grants? Because some grants are specific, and they say that you have to be either, obviously, within the location. So if you're in London, then you have to be a London-based business. Same goes for a grant in Lincoln. They want to promote Lincoln-based companies and not ones from London. Is there a way of registering yourself twice? So one in Lincoln, or is there some sort of great?
Do you mean registering your business at different addresses?
Would that allow me to get grants from both London and Lincoln?
I'm not the best person to talk about compliance. I think your law guy down here might be, but I will do what I have to do to ensure that the funding goes in the right direction. Yeah. So look, all I'll say is the East Midlands and Lincoln are key strategic areas for the government to invest in business and research and development. That's all I know, right? So I would say that being domiciled here as a business is definitely an advantageous position for funding, I would imagine. But I'm sure there'll be people much better qualified than I today to answer that properly, okay? But all I'd say is that this is a strategically good area for grant funding at the moment.
So say you've got an idea for a business name you'd like to go with. How do you make it, as you have done, short and sweet and looks presentable?
Oh, thank you, man. That's really nice. Well, you have to, they always say, anyone can make something sound complicated. The art is making it look simple, right? So you have these people who you meet and they're like, they I don't know, they're annoying. You meet them in the library and they're quoting a whole chapter at you and it's like, oh, well done, mate. You know the big words. Right? But the art is actually, what does it mean? How do you apply that to the real world? What's the real world application of that? So majority of people, think about, average human beings and bell curves of sort of intelligence and income and things like that. If you want to market a product, you have to sell to the majority, right? So the key is to keep it simple and clear, right? Like, for example, the whole thing with compare the market. Like, if you talk about, it's a comparison engine for home insurance and pet insurance, I couldn't be less interested. But put a meerkat in a gown, it's interesting all of a sudden, So I think the key thing is, when you're building a brand, think about the things that you want to say, and then number two, think about the way in which you can make that saying interesting. Do you see what I mean? Because then all the detail can come, all the little nitty gritty and boring stuff, the features can come. But I think you need that sort of main reason to believe up front, and it's a fun, friendly thing, because people aren't attracted to brands or people that are miserable. So be fun, be interesting, be embracing with that whole simplicity. And then people are like, that's accessible. And then you can go complicated. But don't start being complicated. You're putting people off. That's my thoughts anyway. I'm sure there's different views on that, but yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I would like to ask one question. That is, you mentioned that you were doing something that you were not interested in before, and then you realize that what you actually want to do. So I'm interested in that process. Like, what made you realize, or how did you like decide that what do you want to do? What was the process behind that?
I think it's very dependent on the person. I think if you're passionate about something and you know what you like and what you don't like, it's much easier to sort of make those decisions. If you're unsure, keep doing what you're doing and it won't be so apparent. But if you're really passionate about a certain way of working, like I really love working with small businesses and finding new innovative solutions. And when all those adverts, I find it interesting. But when I have to do like maths-driven plans and different things, it bores me. But sometimes we have to do things that aren't interesting. If you want to start a business, you're going to have to do stuff you don't want to, like paying tax and stuff, right? It's part of life, but everything has a tax. But the point is that if you want to do something, it becomes second nature to you and you enjoy it. If you're doing something that doesn't feel right and it feels like you're out of your depth or you're an imposter or you're punching and it happens again and again and again and you're not getting any joy out of it and it leaves you cold and you don't feel like you're adding value to anyone's life. Like when I was working on this big account, I'd just be sat in an airport doing an email. I didn't care. I just wanted to send it and get it done so I could have a nap on the plane. Like that's not right, yeah? I was just existing and that's not worth it. And life's too short, yeah? But I think you'll know when you start to, because I don't want to get into the whole purpose ikigai thing, but if you got to align your actions with what you want to do, right? Because if you don't, and you're living someone else's dream of success or some other identikit of what an MBA grad should do, you're just going to be perpetually miserable. So you've got to decide what drives you and go along that road, I'd say.
You said something. Can you hear me? Okay, you said something about you don't have to discount on your pricing. Like you don't have to cut down your price to get known to people. But in a situation whereby you're in a fix, you are trying to make your brand get global or something, and you're not actually selling, you're not making sales. How do you fix those challenges?
Good question. Really good question. Thanks for that. So pricing and discounts are a sales strategy to drive sales of extra purchase, right? So say Black Friday comes, there's a perception and expectation that people are going to drop their prices. And if they don't, it's like, oh, they're a bit tight, aren't they? I understand that. So there's a time and place for that. But throughout the year, bar those sales events, there is things you can do, going back to that thing where you do things before you advertise. There's many things along the journey that you can get right. So if, for example, you're not selling enough, it might be because you're speaking to the wrong audience. It might be because the message is wrong and it's not speaking to the audience properly. It might be the fact that you priced it wrong in the first place. Bearing in mind, here's a quick thing, by the way. Start big and then let the market dictate the price downwards if necessary. Don't start small because it's hard to up your prices. People get annoyed if you up your prices. Start decent, yeah, and then you might work it out. But if things are struggling, price as a lever could be an option to drive sales, but then you're going to forfeit profitability, which people aren't fond of now in the current climate. So it might be something different to your point. It might be an audience change. It might be a product you promote differently. It might be where you sell it. It might be a new thing. Whenever anything goes stale, there's always other levers you can pull on except price. I would say price, yes, but it's always the last resort, really. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you.
All right. My own.
Hi.
If I would like to present my own to make you, I would like you to give a simplified answer. Now, if everything you have is taken away from you, let's say even their company, is taken away from you, leaving you with the knowledge you have now or you have built over these years, and I ask you to start the same business again, what are the steps you are going to take? Let's say you are just a fresh graduate with no fund, but all the knowledge you have is still with you. What are you going to do in this 2023? Thank you.
Jeez, that's a really good, I've just gone on wrong thing. I was going to go back to, here he is. I shouldn't be allowed this. I'm going to give this away before I do something stupid with it, by the way. Okay, so you remember I did that slide where I looked at all the different clients I'd worked with, and I made a point on there. I wasn't bragging. I wasn't like going, oh, well done me. But very occasionally, it's really important to look at what you've done and think, like, you know, look at the rubble, look at the, you know, you break a plate, the pieces are everywhere, right? But within that, there's some beautiful porcelain. So I would always say, you know, look at all the things you've done and actually start to pull out again the things that work for you. So for example, if everything wiped away from me and my business went under, I'd look at those things, go, right, what did I do for Virgin Media? What did I do for Lenovo? What did I do for Samsung? What did I do for Cheap Flights? What did I do for Recap? Then I'd write them down. Then I'd probably write down on the right-hand side what I enjoyed the most and rank them in order of enjoyment, because I'm not doing something I don't want to do again, especially if it don't make me money, right? I need to find a way to do it. So what am I good at? What can I make money with? And what do I enjoy? They'd be the three things I'd look at. And then I'd just bloody shut my eyes, go again, and hope for the best. Yeah, I mean, look, it's not an easy, there's no pithy, easy answer for that. And anyone who gives you it is just nonsense. But the reality is that I'd look at what I've good in the rubble, I'd see what I'm good at and what I enjoy and do it. Because I guarantee that I'd do things differently again if I did it again. You can't do the same thing twice. That's the definition of insanity, right? I had a business, I failed because I didn't make enough money. So I started to monetize my time in projects and retainers. If that failed, well, I'd just have to adapt, wouldn't I? But the time will come and I'll work it out. I hope it doesn't happen, by the way.
Thank you very much, Simon.
Thanks.
I like the way you're still looking that way.
Yeah. Okay.
That was really interesting. So can we have another round of applause for Simon, please?
Thank you for the questions,
Fantastic.
by the way. Thanks. Thanks.
I hope you'll all take a lot away from that. I know I will, so thank you very much, Simon.